When we get up in the morning, along with coffee, toast, and cake. If you're like the old Stone Roadie, you like to wake and bake. Now let's join Craig, Reed, and Griff Martin as we head out on the road. So sit right back, buckle right in. It's a Wake and Bake Morning Show. It's a Wake and Bake Morning Show. It's a Wake and Bake Morning Show. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Time to rise and shine. I'm Shelby Barrett, the Stoned for the Stoned Roadie Show, and it's time to Wake and Bake with Craig Reed and Griff Martin.
The Stoned Roadie Show, podcast number 155, action. Alrighty then, looky here. Here we are, and it's Monday, April 15th, 2024. My name's Craig Reed, and known in small circles on Facebook as the world's most famous roadie, also known as the Stoned Roadie. And this is my co-host, the rocket scientist, Griff Martin. So what do we got going on this there bright and sunny Monday morning there, Griff?
Yeah, well, I think you've been working hard over the weekend, Craig, and you compiled a list of all the contestants and put a number by their name, and now we have a day planned where we can do the drawing, and you're thinking about Friday, aren't you?
Yeah, I guess that'd be pretty good. I got 121 names on. Hey, we kind of double what we had last time. We got 121 names, and I'd like to count them all down, but there's 3 pages here, and I don't think we can do that. I've been telling some people as I talk to them on FakeBook, I've been telling them what their number is. But yeah, I think we can maybe we announcing it. We're gonna do our first announcement today, and maybe I can get on and on the where they sent me in emails and get on there and tell them advance them to what their number is, so they know they're in the drawing. I'm pretty sure I got everybody that sent in been kind of complicated because we had it on you sent me an email, and then you sent me stuff to my post office box, and then we had some left over from last time, so I was trying to keep them in order, and finally got it all compiled. But so I guess we'll maybe have our first drawing here maybe Friday. Yeah, Friday morning.
It's been so long since we talked about having the drawing. I almost forgot what all that we're giving away.
yeah, really. Let me see, what is that? It's one of your Hell House paintings, and then it's one of those Live at the Fox things with the band and the crew on it. And then what else?
A kazoo?
A kazoo, and a couple of those $1 million bills, and one of those Lynyrd Skynyrd decals that we're selling for $25 that we got off of Clayton Johnson for the survivors that were from Bill Graham, and then we got the Rossington Collins sticker, and oh God, it seems like there's something else. I'll have to have to think about it. Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, and maybe, just maybe, I'll get your address from Craig, and I'll send you a Hell House sticker with a Gene Odom Craig Reed signature on there even.
Yeah.
Come in a separate package. So that's just for the people that sent in, and just a little extra something for you.
But yeah, we got Well, maybe we'll talk about that on the comments about me being the world's most famous roadie. I had a couple of comments about that. People were going, because I kind of said, it's all these whether you call band what we used to call band roadies. When you hump band gear, you're kind of a band roadie, and if you did lights or sound, you were just a light guy or a sound guy, and then all of a sudden these guitar or these band roadies started wanting to call themselves techs, and now I'm calling myself the world's most famous roadie, and they're getting their underwear all bound up about it, but I don't see the problem. They don't want to be even called a roadie. They're insulted by being called a roadie. So I don't know how you could call yourself a famous roadie if you're ashamed to be known as a roadie. That'd be like being the world's most famous basketball player, but you're ashamed to be called a basketball player. It's kind of, I mean, my thing is, when I worked for Skynyrd, I was a roadie. I wasn't because when I started with Skynyrd, I started doing drums, and I was a drum guy. That's what I was. I wasn't a real roadie at that point. I just knew how to do drums. But then as I worked along, I knew how to do guitars. And I learned how to set up the back line, and eventually I could set up all the band equipment by myself. So if I could go into a thing, and I was the only band roadie that needed to be there because I knew how to do everything myself, and I just used stagehands to hump the gear around, and I just kind of orchestrated the thing and had them put it together. But I knew how to put everything together. It's just like if you only know how to do drums or guitars or whatever, and you don't know how to do everything else, yeah, you're just a band or a guitar tech or a drum tech. But to be a roadie, you gotta know how to do every damn thing. So I guess that's why they call themselves techs these days, because they can only do one specific thing. I don't know what it is, but yeah, I don't. If you want to be the world's most famous roadie, you can't be ashamed to call yourself a roadie. I mean, it's kind of.
Well, it's kind of turned into a man bun kind of world these days. People get their feelings hurt. It's the pussification of the United States. Everybody gets their feelings hurt about everything.
There's been times I said that we did gigs. Me and Kevin Elson did gigs. It was just me and Kevin, and I set up everything, and Kevin set up the keyboards. When I know how to set up a key. Kevin did the keyboards and did the out front sound and stuff, and I did everything else. But I knew how to do the keyboards. He didn't really need to do it, but he set up the keyboards. But yeah, I could set up everything. I knew how to set up every piece of equipment Skynyrd had. So, yeah, I was a roadie. I'm proud of it.
I think I'd rather be called a roadie than a band tech.
Yeah, it's like I said, everybody's a tech these days. You can be a dental tech, being
a nail tech.
Nail tech. Yeah, there's all kind of techs you can be. Everybody's a tech. And when you say you're a roadie, people go, "Oh yeah, that's cool. You're a band. You work for a band and travel. Oh, that's cool." But yeah. So yeah, I don't know why they want to call themselves techs, but boy, they get it's like you're insulting them to be calling them a roadie. Like, I'm more than just a roadie.
What does Pops want to be called?
I don't know. I don't think Pops really cares. I don't know.
We'll have to get Pops on here and ask him.
Yeah, we'll have to.
Pops, what do you like to be called? I'd be curious to see what he'd say. I don't give a shit.
I think Pops is retired these days, but Pops more or less just did guitars, But he, I imagine he knew how to do other stuff.
He put a thing on Facebook the other day. He was over in Guatemala or something back in the day on some bus, and he was. Did you see that post he put up about that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, he says like they almost got killed on in this bus on some side of some cliff or something. We had to get him on here to tell that story.
Yeah, we need to get Pops back on here. I'm sure he'll come
Yeah,
back.
he was a great guest. We got some other cool stuff, Craig. Anna Ethington, she runs that Fans of Southern Rock page, and she's got all kinds of people that subscribe to her on that. Well, actually, it's a Facebook page. She's the admin, and she's taken over the supportsurvivors.net page that I set up. And she's fixing that thing up, and you guys want to go there because there's going to be all kinds of things being added that she's putting in there. She's looking at adding like things like for Gene Odom tours and Gene selling books and other people that have links to Lynyrd Skynyrd things. And she's pretty creative, and she's on top of that. Soon there's going to be a e-commerce page on there where you can buy stuff that supports the survivors. So check out the supportsurvivors.net, and thank you, Anna and her husband, Tom, for working on that for me, because I just don't have time, and it's aggravating because I'm kind of like a technophobe. Speaking of tech, I'm a technophobe. And so supportsurvivors.net, and pretty soon, you'll be able to send like if you want to put a donation in or whatever to that. Not that we're pushing that at all. And even Kent Griffith, he's got a new YouTube channel that he's working on, and we're going to put a link up there to that. And speaking of Kent Griffith, you're going to want to hang around for the end of this jibber jabber here, because there's a neat little audio story that Kent Griffith is telling, and you might want to get your pad and pen out, because he tells the secret directions to Ronnie Van Zant's fishing hole, and he tells a neat story that Gene told him about how Ronnie caught his bass, and it's pretty cool. I been going through the Kent Griffith files that he gave me, and he sent that to me, and I went ahead and put that on we're going to put that on the end of this after the jibber jabber. So
yeah, we want to get away from that donation concept and get more into the like and subscribe. That was our whole thing. We started this. We wanted to fund the survivors through subscriptions, but we're not making a lot of money on the subscriptions now, so we really want to build that up. So if you can help us get our subscriptions up, if we can get those up, we can support those people from pretty good from subscriptions. But until then, we've been relying on those donations, but we want to get away from that. We don't want to be known as donations. I think it's hurting our subscriptions and our views, because people think we're bugging them for donations, and we want to get away from that. Although, we like, we don't mind getting them because we like to support those people, but we don't want to hammer people for donations. We just we'd like to do it off subscriptions. So if you could help us out and get the word out to like and subscribe, we sure appreciate it.
Yeah. And we got some really cool comments from the last podcast. And if you want, Craig, we'll go over that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Comments and questions. And then when we do that, we'll do a wrap up. And then you guys stick around for the Kent Griffith files. And he tells that real cool story. Little backline on Kent. Kent Griffith is kind of like a walking encyclopedia of Lynyrd Skynyrd. I mean, there's people that run fan sites and things that think they know stuff about Lynyrd Skynyrd. This guy, he's got a photographic memory, and him and Brandon Campbell, those guys are, really, knowledgeable about a lot of stuff, and they knew, a lot of the band members, and Kent, he recorded with all the guys, and I don't think he knew Ronnie. It was more like after the plane crash, and he hung around all those guys. And another cool thing about Kent is you want to take a look at the comments on each one of the podcasts, because sometimes he'll leave a nice lengthy comment that has something to do maybe with something Craig mentioned or Craig didn't know about. And if Craig doesn't know something, he'll come on there and he'll answer maybe something that he knows that Craig didn't know. And so check the comments after a few days, and if Kent leaves something on there, it's usually a laundry list of things that maybe we missed or something that he can add to the podcast that is a really good analogy of maybe what we talked about, or just an addition to the podcast. So Kent Griffith, really cool guy. We appreciate him. And just as a follow up on this little thing at the end, I might do an on the road with Kent and maybe take a trip out to Ronnie's fishing hole. Who knows? Maybe I'll take Bad Company 2 out there with Gene and do a little jigger fishing out there in the lily pads or something. I'll call Gene to see if he's into that.
Well, that's where we were when I put up the video with the camper, when we were out there in the camper with Gene and me and Chad and Sue and Ronnie and Judy and Gary. Well, that's where we were. We were out there at that fishing hole.
Yeah, I thought Gene, because on one of the podcasts, I was doing it on the road, and I was riding to Jacksonville with Gene, and I did a little interview with him, and he talked about fishing at Ronnie's fishing hole, and I think he said that it had one time dried up and split like into two little lakes or something, and I'm not sure if it's exactly the same as it used to be now. I think it was way better back then. So yeah, and there's some other stuff that he talks about in that little audio at the end. It's pretty interesting. It's a really great story about Ronnie Van Zant. So you want to stick around for that. So jumping into the comments, a person says, Alan Walden told a story about a tour that the original Lynyrd Skynyrd band was on, and a bunch of people were on the tour bus. And I don't know, Craig, if you were there or not. It says Ronnie was getting a little pissed off about them all being on there, and he wanted to get them off. And I guess it turned into a brawl, and it was like about 20 people against the Lynyrd Skynyrd band, and there was somebody in there that wouldn't fight. You know anything about that?
No, that doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah. Huh.
I had to have been with them, because we always, like I said, when I started, all we had was a van. So I was with them the whole time when we got tour buses and stuff. So,
Well, maybe you were stoned and passed out, and you were the one that wouldn't fight.
Oh no.
Yeah, so I don't know.
I don't know. Could that have been in San Francisco when Ronnie got the black eyes?
Maybe so. Anybody else knows about that? Put a little comment there and let us know what happened if you know anything about it.
Because I wasn't there. Me and Dean was off somewhere else doing something.
Then we had somebody mentioned it was nice to see Otto. Automotive. He's a cool guy, and I think you met Otto. You bought a car from him, right, Craig? Isn't that how you met him?
Yeah. That's how I met Otto. Yeah.
And he's kind of a character, and he went back in the day when we were promoting Six Gun, trying to help those guys get started, and we were touring around with them, spending a lot of time and effort trying to get those guys going. And Otto really put a lot of effort into that, and myself and Chad and Craig and Otto was a big part of that. And I had a lot of great times with Otto, and good to see him again. I guess he's kicking around a little bit. He went through a little personal thing there for a while, but he's back in party mode.
Yeah, he was here till about 3 in the morning last night. Both of us had a rough time getting up this afternoon for me.
Yeah, the good thing about Otto is he lives so close to Craig. If I don't hear from Craig, or in a day or so, and I start worrying about it, I'll call Otto, and Otto will do a well check on Craig for us. Because you never know, Craig might get into those gummies or some mushrooms or something, and he might be swallowing his own tongue or something, and we don't want that to happen. So
never can tell, man. I still know people that party like a rock star, and sometimes I get involved.
Yeah. So it's good to see Otto. Automotive. Jeff McCauley, right? Isn't that his name? His real name? Yeah, Jeff. Okay. Guy Mike asked, do you think the people that were trying to get in your briefcase maybe could have been Ronnie's widow's lawyer?
No, it was Peter Rudge. I'm sure Peter wouldn't have Judy's lawyer with him.
Okay.
No, it was Peter and somebody. I don't know. I just woke up in the hospital, man. I was on morphine and stuff. All I remember was Peter and some other guy wanted to know how to get my briefcase. That's all I remember.
Yeah. Well, there's that rumor that Ronnie's divorce papers were in the briefcase. I'm sure Judy gets sick of hearing that. Who knows? I mean, who knows?
Yeah,
Who cares?
I don't know.
Really, I mean, it didn't happen. They weren't divorced. So, it is what it is. And I guess they were probably looking for a lot of things. I would say probably maybe money and valuables, and I don't think they were worried about divorce papers personally. But what do I know? Somebody might comment, "You're wrong, Griff."
Well, at that point in the tribute tour, I wasn't responsible for holding a lot of band cash because I was just a guitar roadie. I wasn't a production manager, or stage manager, or didn't have to buy a bunch of stuff. So I didn't really have a lot of the band's money, so they wouldn't have,
Yeah. Well, they're according to that, Mike O'Hara, there was some money missing, and of course, some people stated that they had some drugs that they didn't get back, and there was some pilfering. Matter of fact, in one of those interviews, they caught a couple people dragging an airplane door through the woods, and they caught them, and I mean, those guys were thinking ahead, Little did they know, all they had to do is go get a fuselage and put it in their barn like Craig and sell parts off of it.
Parts of it, yeah.
That was a huge rumor going around for a while. I laugh because Craig doesn't even have a barn.
Used to. It's all fallen down now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where he used to get those girls in the neighborhood up in the hayloft, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was a kid. I had a little place up above,
Maybe one day we can talk about that, because I think you were running a brothel up there, weren't you?
No, that was back in the field back there. We had tents set up. Yeah, it was like, yeah. It was like the Econo Lodge back there.
You didn't have a bunch of heifers in the neighborhood? They were all nice, skinny girls, nice looking skinny girls, huh?
Oh, God, yeah. Well, there weren't no fat girls back then. There was a few. I didn't know any of them.
This time I brought it up, so. Okay. Then somebody asked, did Alan and JoJo ever talk after the crash? And Did she ever see anyone else in the band other than Alan casually?
Oh, no comment.
That would be a yes. A yes without names, I
Some
guess.
things just don't need to be talked about.
Yeah, out of respect, for those that have passed on.
There's,
God knows.
there's kids and grandkids and
Right.
stuff.
And they may be the grandkids of Allen's. Shame on me. And Kimmy, our favorite little Kimmy girl, she comments on stuff. She's kind of a nut, and she's funny. Kimmy says I used the Bill Clinton voice to get Brenda Martin to let me use her interview. I don't know, whatever that means. And she also says she wants to marry me. And when she said that, I thought of that thing that Craig posted on Facebook. This guy's on his knee and he's proposing to his wife and to his fiance, or he wants her to be his wife. And he goes, "Will you please take everything I have?" And she goes, "Yes, I will."
Well, you ruined my life. Is
that what it was?
Yeah. Will you destroy my life? Yes, I will. Of course I will.
Not saying that you would destroy my life, Kimmy, because you might be wealthy or something, but I'll put it to you like this. I haven't even found a date in a while because they're all a bunch of liberals, and I'm not going out with any liberals. And so I'd rather just be myself, because there's a lot of women out there, they hate Trump. They think he's a pig, but I mean, my God, are you going to be mad at the pest control guy because he's got a bedside manner, but he's the only one who can get the rats out of the basement? So thank you, Kimmy. We'll talk about that maybe if you're a Trump girl. I don't. I'm flattered. Okay, let me see here. Somebody says they would love to see a roadie for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, there was a lot of people
cool.
telling me about that, that they wanted me to try to get to instigate them to put roadies in the Rock Hall of Fame. As a matter of fact, they're having induction. They're starting the inductions for the Hall of Fame here this week.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It's that time of the year where they're going to induct somebody into the Hall of Fame this year. Yeah.
I'll tell you what I'd like, and I don't know if anybody knows how it works. I haven't really done any studying of it, and I've talked to Craig about it, but I'd like to see Craig get on Wikipedia. If you could Google Wikipedia and see the Stoned Roadie on there, and heck, it might even help us out with our subscriptions if it says Craig Reed, the Stoned Roadie, the most famous roadie of all time in rock and roll history. If it said that in Wikipedia, and that he has the Stoned Roadie podcast, and who knows, people would start looking, and next thing you know, we'd have 1 million subscriptions.
Yeah, that would secure my position as the world's most famous Stoned Roadie, and
yeah,
piss off all these techs,
Right. So if anybody has an end to how that works, where you initiate some kind of a Wikipedia thing, I have no clue how that works, really. I think somebody has to apply for it or something. It might even cost money, but I don't know. But there's
that guy last week that he doesn't think I deserve to have any Wikipedia. He says I don't know nothing and you know less.
No, he says he says whatever it was, but yeah, both of us.
He said that Craig, you ask him, Craig, he don't know nothing and Griff knows less or something. It's funny.
Yeah, you know who he is. He's our nemesis. Yeah, he's that guy who.
Oh yeah. Hey, Mickey Moose, you got
Yeah.
about as much chance of getting in this drawing as a snowball in hell.
Yeah, he's got
He
he's
put in his application for the drawing. I just laughed. Yeah, that's
well, he could win it, and you could send him a nice little package of some doo doo.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well,
We
at
know
least
who you are, Mickey Moose.
at least he watches the podcast, right? And then this person says right here, which kind of goes along with what we were talking about. It would be nice to see Elon Musk donate some money.
Boy,
I think,
wouldn't it? Yeah,
I
that'd
think
be
the last
great.
thing Elon Musk is going to do is like look at a Stoned Roadie podcast, but
Oh
you
yeah,
never know. There might be
yeah.
somebody out there, that's got to donate some money for tax reasons or whatever. Who knows? Yeah, that'd be nice. So let me see here. Oh, uh, Johnny asks, what what happened to Ronnie's daughter, Tammy? What did she die from? I never knew that. What?
Oh yeah, I heard. I heard it had. You know, I don't know. I don't really want to say because I don't want to say something that ain't true.
Yeah,
But I heard it
but
was the same thing that happened to Ronnie's nephew. About the
little
same.
Ronnie.
Yeah, I heard it
Yeah,
was
it
the same
sometimes it's
situation.
tough, being famous from, somebody like the daughter or the son of somebody famous. That's hard on you, I mean, you have a lot of expectations and God bless her, she probably went through a lot of stuff. It's not easy. You see that happen time and time again. Um, and she lost her dad too, so just think about that.
Yeah,
So
she had some issues. Yeah.
yeah. Let me see here. Oh, James said that he's seen photos of Aerosmith partying with Lynyrd Skynyrd. Craig, do you have any stories about that?
No, I don't really remember them partying with them. They had their pic. Ronnie had his picture taken with a couple of them. A
I've
couple.
never seen that picture, but
It was the bass player, I think it was, that him and they were somewhere.
I saw a picture of Ronnie with Paul McCartney, but somebody said that was photoshopped. Is that true?
I never seen the picture of Ronnie with Paul. No,
Yeah, I
The one with
definitely
me.
saw that.
Yeah, Gary and Artemis were I seen with him, but I don't remember.
Well, he was at Nebworth, and I even talked
Oh
to
yeah,
Leslie Hawkins about, and she met him there, and I
yeah,
asked
yeah.
her, did she get to talk to him? And I don't think he was like overly friendly, you know. I think I heard a story that he was wanting to see Ronnie, and I think I even asked Leslie. I wish I could remember. I'm getting like Craig, but I asked Leslie because somebody said that um, the Honkettes were like kind of wanting to talk to Paul McCartney. He kind of blew him off, and it pissed Ronnie off. And he said, "I don't care less if I meet the guy or not." But I think Leslie, if you're watching, I don't know, send me a text or something. Maybe
Hmm.
that's not true or whatever. Um,
I don't know. I was with Gary. He was real sociable to me because I was with when I met him. I was with Gary once, and I was with Artemis once. And sit and talk to him for about 5 minutes.
yeah.
Just
So you
sit
met
in and
Paul, Ringo, and John. You
mm-hmm.
met
Yeah.
three of the Fab Four.
Mm-hmm.
And who can say that?
Yeah. Forrest Gump.
Right. Forrest Gump again. There goes Craig with Forrest Gump again. You were even at Ringo's house doing a little
Yeah,
partying
yeah,
at
yeah,
Ringo's
yeah,
house. Yeah.
yeah,
And then you
yeah. I
had
was there for a short time. Yeah.
had brunch with John Lennon and
Uh-huh.
hung out with Paul at Nebworth.
Mm-hmm.
Look at
Yeah.
you, man. That's
Look at me.
Wikipedia material right there. I'm telling you.
That's more of the world's most famous roadies resume.
Yeah. So, I mean, all these other techs, if you want to throw in, your resume, just send it to Craig Reed, P.O. Box 442, Green, Ohio 44232. We'll have a roadie off or a tech off, however you want to do that, right? This guy, he calls himself Wheelchair Chuck. Wheelchair Chuck. I don't know how you got in a wheelchair. Sorry about that, Chuck. And he says, Craig, there's something wrong with your "Sorry, we're stoned" sign. It sounds like it's coughing all the time. And
Wheelchair
Edward,
Chuck. I bet I can ride a wheelie as good as you can, Wheelchair Chuck.
yeah, that's right. Wheelchair Chuck, did you hear the story?
Yeah, we'll have a wheelie wheel off, me and Chuck. Yeah,
a wheelchair race.
yeah. No wheelies.
Wheelies. That's what you learned how to do the wheelies in the wheelchair before you even needed the wheelchair.
Oh
right?
yeah. I'm good with wheelies in a wheelchair. Yeah.
That's like, I guess it's like riding a bicycle. You just get right back on that thing and start wheeling.
Yeah.
You think you could do it now?
Oh heck yeah, man.
Really?
I do it all. Whenever I get near a wheelchair, I do it every now and then. Yeah.
Well, I'll do an on the road. We'll go down to the hospital here in Green, Ohio, and we'll videotape.
Oh yeah, get in a wheelchair. Yeah.
Yeah. Next time I go to Craig's, that's what we're gonna do.
Gonna go get a wheelchair.
And then we'll do an on road from the jail wherever we get thrown in jail for doing it. Oh, Edward says, "Hey, that was my question. We were talking about that when I asked Craig, how was it when you dealt with the fact of losing, your friends on the plane?" He says he wasn't trying to be a dick about it. He's just, he was really wanting to know. And
no, that's a legitimate question. Yeah, that's yeah. Yeah, that's rough, man. Yeah, that was very rough. Well, God, yeah, it's lose any of your friends, that's rough. But to lose your career and your friends, that's double rough. I mean, man, my whole
you lost your job and then you lost your
everything.
friends.
Yeah, everything. It was just pulled the rug out from under me.
I mean, and then just think about, everybody else that was hurt. And, of course, Alan and Leon, they had really bad injuries. It's amazing how those guys came back from that. It's, that's what makes Lynyrd Skynyrd one of the most interesting stories in rock and roll. I mean, you've got from rags to riches, an airplane crash, great music. And that's why their name lives on, because it's such a not only great music, but it's a great story. And there's so many books written about them. And I would venture to say there's going to be even more coming out in the future, but it won't be Craig's.
Well, there would have been more than 6 people died in that if it wouldn't have been for that helicopter above that found us and put that light on.
Easily, yeah.
It's amazing, any of it. I mean, I never really realized how lucky we all were any of us were to survive until I would talk to them people that were here on the podcast and said didn't look like an airplane. It just looked like a bunch of crumpled up metal laying out in the field. It didn't even look like an airplane. It was in 3 pieces and stuff. Yeah, it was upside down and no wings on it. And yeah, that was
yeah, and then the sheriff said that in one of the Mike O'Hara interviews, the sheriff said it was like another 100 yards and there was a field. I tell you what I ought to do is I ought to put that aerial view that we took on one of the next podcasts that shows, it's really amazing how much woods is out there. But then you look around and there are some fields. That drone really explains a lot, that drone footage that we took. So I'll put that up on maybe the next podcast. At the end of the podcast, I'll see if I can find that drone footage and put that up. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, some of the other plane crashes that I recall, like Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper and all of them, seems like they were more or less out in the open fields where the plane, is, and crashed and stuff,
Yeah.
and they all died. And God, we ended up in the damn woods, man. I mean, that's, you think of the open field, you'd have a chance to survive rather than the way we did it and crushed it up in all them trees and stuff. It's kind of weird.
Well, the open fields like that, it not being level, you tend to have the ability to cartwheel. And once a plane starts cartwheeling with all that inertia and energy, and it's not stopping. So who knows what the pilots were thinking? What maybe, I've heard people say that they were trying to slow their momentum down a little bit by, clipping the tops of the trees. So by the time they reached the field, that, they slowed down. So no telling what those guys were thinking. But they did something right because, not that many people perished. And Craig's one of them, and he's here to tell the story. So,
Well, that was that was a crumpled up mess. So my God, out there in the middle of that field. Yeah, I never knew it was so tragic until I actually got out there. Yeah.
Yeah. And that is all on video. So you guys might want to go back and binge watch, because we did take Craig back out to the crash site. We rode him out there in an off-road vehicle. He got out and walked through the creek and everything, and got to visit exactly where the plane was. That's where we did the drone footage too.
Yeah,
So
they took me right to where they loaded me on the vehicle to haul me out of there.
Yeah, it was kind of like
close as they could get. Yeah.
There's a little ambulatory area there where they had everybody laid out on stretchers, and they were hauling them up to the main road in a pickup truck. And Craig, I got to see the look on his face, and he looked around and he was like, "Oh my God, this is where I was."
Well, the creek was dry too, and that was a big problem because that creek water, all of us had, open wounds, and there was a doctor right there where they were taking us across the creek, and that's where that doctor was apparently that's where the doctor was stationed, right there where they were hauling us across that creek to make sure they didn't dump us down in that creek water and those open wounds.
Yeah, that would have been nasty.
Yeah, if I'd have got creek water because I had an open wound in my chest right here, with a punctured lung. If that had got in my chest, it's hard to tell what would happen.
There's actually pictures of you on the stretcher at the hospital.
Yeah.
And you can see old Craig there, man. He went from the fastest guitar swap out to the fastest stretcher going on the plane. So hell of a feat, I tell you what. And this is the
somebody told me when I explained that picture that I called myself a tech.
You did.
Yeah,
That's
somebody
right.
said. Yeah, somebody said fastest guitar tech or something like that. I called myself a tech after bitching about being a roadie. I called myself a tech. Oh well, that's it's.
Yeah, there's got one more question here too, and then we'll wrap up the jibber jabber, and we'll get into the audio of Kent Griffith, the story of Ronnie's fishing hole and his big bass, which I think was 12 point something pounds. Chuck says, here to wrap up the questions and comments, Chuck says he sees why Brenda and Johnny Moat divorced, because she's about as friendly as a rattlesnake. And I can verify that. As a matter of fact, I I was on the phone with Artimus Pyle when he went to the monument, and he had just had an encounter with her, and man, he was hotter than hell. He's he was talking about her, and oh my God, he was pissed. I guess she attacked him and and kind of crawled up one side of him and down the other. And you do not want to get on Brenda's bad side, because she doesn't hold off at all. She's a sweet lady, though. If
she's straightforward. Yeah, she's
a good person. She just doesn't. She's not really a rattlesnake. She's just a little.
She just tells it like it is. Yeah.
There's a lot of us that know people like that. All right, Craig, you got anything else?
No, no. I'm done.
You done? You undone or done?
I'm done. Whatever. Yeah.
Okay,
Just like and subscribe, and
then I guess maybe the next podcast we'll talk a little bit more about the drawing and
that'll be Wednesday. Yeah, I'm gonna try to get on. Then if you sent me a email, I'm gonna try to get on there and give you your number, just to make sure that you're in there, and then if you're a friend of mine on FakeBook, I'll try to get in there and tell you what your number is, just so that you're secure that you're in the drawing. But I believe I got everybody. If you sent me I kept everything, all the letters and stuff, and I'm
nice little package for a shadow box. You can put it in a little shadow box, hang it on your wall, or sell it. Who knows? Maybe one day it'll be worth even more money. But it's a nice little drawing, nice little prize. So, all righty, Craig.
All right,
clipboard.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, here we go. I got these dogs in my lap. It's gonna be hard for me to close out here. Hold on a minute. Got to move the screen out of the way. All righty then. Happy trails to you until we meet again, and see you later, alligator, at the Wild Crocodile. And this has been another edition of the Stone Roadie Show, and we're out of here. Cut.
I'm having trouble trying to put together a story about Ronnie. It's a story that Gene first turned me on to. It's a story that I was hoping to get to Griff on the Craig Reed podcast, because this is something that I'd like to see him get his camera on down here in Florida one day. But if I can tell this story correctly, to me this is a valuable Skynyrd story, and it's one of the more important ones. I think fans, the world over, should hear about something like this. It's a little out of the ordinary, I guess, a little different. So let's see if I can piece this all together. I'd like to ask, each of you, how do you get close to Ronnie? How do you want to get close to Ronnie? It's his music, that's what draws a lot of us, is the words, the stories. There was something there in Ronnie, that a lot of people can't put their finger on. And I believe I can put my finger on it, because Ronnie and I shared something it's in our blood, you know. It's Florida. Songs like Cottonmouth Country, Country Boy, All I Can Do Is Write About It. You know, Ronnie wrote about the swamps and fishing, and he wrote about Florida because, you know, there was something there that he was connected to, and that's something I'd like to explore a little bit. I can use my own family a little bit in it, you know, it might help explain it, but my family came to Florida in 1878 on an open mule drawn wagon, and they settled in the west side of Jacksonville and got 40 acres out there and homesteaded. And back then in the 1870s, you know, you had to live off the land. And so my family hunted and fished and farmed to survive. So you get a real close connection, you know, to Florida itself, the environment. And my own father, you know, grew up hunting and fishing. My grandfather worked at the King Edward Cigar Factory in downtown Jacksonville, took a bus back and forth from, you know, the west side to that job every day, made 50 cents a day. But he had 5 sons. My father was the youngest, or second to the youngest, and he told me that when he would go to school, you know, I guess it was Robert E. Lee because that's where he went, but he said, and this is like probably back in the 30s or 40s, 1930s or 40s. My dad was born in 26, and that would probably be 1940s. That he would take his rifle to school with him, turn it in the morning, and then in the afternoon, when school was over, he'd get his rifle from the school, or, you know, shotgun or whatever, and go hunt something for the dinner table, you know. And some of the other brothers would fish, and, you know, Ronnie was no different, you know. I mean, when you're a kid growing up in Florida, you know, and you don't have social media and iPads and cell phones and computer and internet and all that kind of stuff, you know, you get out in nature. I mean, that's your entertainment. And Ronnie, he really, really had a deep connection to Florida nature. He made that very clear in his songs and his lyrics. And it was that connection that I believe was organically grown into his music, if that makes any sense. It's like the music of Ronnie Van Zant and Lynyrd Skynyrd grew out of the soil and water of Florida, if that makes any sense. It's that connection that, you know, I think is at the heart of Lynyrd Skynyrd. You know, it's Florida. It's our symbiotic connection, you know, to our life-sustaining source, you know, where our food and our water comes from, and our life is given to us from the earth and from Florida. And it, you know, was very important to Ronnie. And when Ronnie would travel around the world and country singing his songs, you know, he got out in that rat race. He got disconnected from his roots. And he would come back to Jacksonville, you know, dragging ass, dog-tired, blown out. And he wanted to get back in touch with his roots, back in touch with nature. And he and Gene, only Gene Odom, would go to one specific place way out in the woods in Florida where Ronnie would get away. It was his private hideaway, his secret hideaway. And it was a cabin down in the Ocala National Forest at a lake called Lake Delancey. And Gene shared this with me, and you know, I've known Gene for a long time. I helped him put together the book Remembering the Freebirds by Frank Dorman and Gene Odom. And I can say that, you know, this is probably the most precious gift that Gene ever shared with me, you know, is what he shared with Ronnie. And very few people, you know, knew about this over the years. You know, it's slowly gotten out, but I've known about it for 20, 30 years, and it's really been an important, you know, influential part of, you know, a Skynyrd experience, for lack of a better word. You know, I mean, you feel close to Ronnie and his music, no doubt. You might feel close to Ronnie, you know, sitting by his grave. You might feel close to Ronnie being at his family home. You know, there's different ways that people might, you know, choose to, you know, feel close. I don't know how to say it. You know, you miss Ronnie and you want to feel close. I don't know how to explain it, you know. And for me, the only thing that really does it for me is to relate to Ronnie in the environment in which Ronnie lived. And I'm not sure how to explain this, but there's a drive from Ronnie's house to Lake Delancey. It's, you know, a road map that Ronnie drove. And all I can tell you and try to explain to you is that if you put yourself on that road, on that drive, and you roll in the same, you know, pathway that Ronnie took to that lake and back from his house on Brickyard Road, I've done that drive many times, and there is no other experience like it. I mean, that is where I feel closest to Ronnie, you know, is following in his footsteps to Delancey, is all I can tell you. Down there was a man named Carl and his wife. They lived in a double-wide mobile home on a very nice piece of property. Back in the 70s, Lake Delancey was very isolated, surrounded by woods on all sides, national forest, pristine wilderness out there. Only a small fraction of that lake had humans accessing it from the east side. Just a little slice of, you know, an opening cutting into that lake through the woods. And this guy Carl had the lion's share of that access, and he had the only boat ramp, concrete boat ramp on Lake Delancey. The other boat ramps that everybody else had to use that weren't private behind locked gates was just back your boat down the sandy embankment and put it in the lake that way. But Carl had the only real fish camp, Florida fish camp. But that's another secret about Florida, is our fish camps, old fish camps. But this one was special, and it was special because all other fish camps throughout Florida were geared for northerners to fly in, you know, and they usually had quite a few cabins, you know, at the fish camps and a lodge at most of them. So this one on Lake Delancey did not fit the norm. I don't really know what Carl was up to down there, but it certainly wasn't making a fortune in fishing tourism. I can tell you that, because he only had one cabin. And there was a little bait shop right next to the ramp, and on the other side was the tanks that he kept the wild shiners in, and he had a dock there next to the boat ramp. And this is where Gene and Ronnie would go, you know, on a weekend, maybe for a couple of days. They would drive down there and take the Bad Company boat. And it was on Lake Delancey where, just before Ronnie died, that he had caught that 12-pound, 0.4-ounce largemouth bass that he wanted to take to the taxidermy and have it stuffed and mounted and put on his wall. And Gene told me that, you know, that's exactly what he did, but Ronnie never got to see it, that Ronnie died before it came back from the taxidermy. So, but I wanted to get this story to Griff, you know, who's doing the Craig Reed podcast, because I saw where he brought his camera down to Florida recently, and I thought that this would be a really good one for him to put his camera on, you know, I mean, to do the Lake Delancey drive. I mean, this is something that I think fans have been missing out on because they just didn't know about it. And I think it's time, you know, people heard about it, you know. It's time to share this secret spot of Ronnie's. And, you know, that's something that all of us Florida boys, you know, we have, is secret fishing spots all over Florida. I mean, just dynamite places out in the middle of nowhere. And you don't tell anybody about them. You keep them all to yourself, you know. And that's what Ronnie was doing, him and Gene. Ronnie didn't even take Gary down there. Didn't take anyone else down there that I know of. It was only Gene. And I had the privilege of staying in that cabin with Gene many years ago, and we went on our own fishing trip down there. Instead of Ronnie and Gene, it was Kent and Gene. And Rick Broyles was also there. And we went fishing on that lake, and Gene showed me the spot where Ronnie caught that big bass, and we kind of got rained out that weekend, so we were in the cabin, and Gene was making some of his, you know, obnoxious looking bass lures, big lures, you know. He said he and Ronnie made handmade, and they would toss back up in the lily pads and twitch them around to catch these big bass. And so Gene was making one of those in the cabin while we were there, and I got pictures of it somewhere. Rick's probably got it on videotape. It's a great location. It's way out in the middle of nowhere, at least it used to be. It's now being opened up. There's hiking trails all around the lake now, and campsites, and things have changed down there. But one thing that never changes is if you do go down there, make sure you go down there when it's, you know, good and cold. You know, always wait till the first freeze kills all the bugs, and then after the first freeze, it'll warm up a little bit, and then that's the time you want to go down there, because then you won't have any bugs. But, you know, when we went down there, it was summertime, and I got eaten up with chiggers. I had to leave. I left Gene and Rick there. I hopped in my car and I left. I hauled ass back to Orlando. I had to, you know, do the fingernail polish on chiggers all over the place. I looked like I had the measles probably coming out of there. So be careful about rubbing up against palmetto bushes in the middle of summertime around Lake Delancey. That's all I can tell you. But fans really should try taking that drive one day. You know, it obviously starts at Brickyard Roadhouse where Ronnie lived. And you drive out Brickyard Road to the main road. I don't know what that one was called. But you turn left, and then you drive down to 220. Then you turn left on 220, and you drive to 17 and turn right. And you follow 17 all the way down through Green Cove Springs and down almost to Palatka. And then you turn right on Highway 19 and take that down into the forest, and you follow the signs to Lake Delancey. and you're going to turn off the highway and you're going to go back out in the woods, and it's going to be long, dusty dirt roads with rattlesnakes crossing the road and all kinds of critters out there. It is out there. And, you know, this was Ronnie's secret spot where he would relax and rejuvenate, you know, after long, arduous tours with Skynyrd. This was his secret special spot. You know, he didn't do a lot of fishing, I guess, up in his area. I mean, he lived on, you know, basically the St. Johns River, connected to Doctor's Lake up there in Orange Park. But the fishing up there was not good. You know, I quit fishing up there in 1982 because the fish and the crabs were coming out of that river with, you know, their fins eaten off, their legs eaten off. There was just chemicals in the water, and it was bad. Coming from the Palatka pulp mills down there, they were just dumping all their chemicals into the river that were flowing to Jacksonville and then on out to the ocean. So I was trying to fish it in Orange Park, and, you know, I gave up in 1982 because it was just toxic, chemically polluted, and I can see why, you know, Ronnie would take his boat and leave the area and go somewhere else, you know, to clean, pristine waters, you know. And that reminds me, I was going to talk a little bit about Ronnie's connection to Florida. You know, my family was an old Florida cracker family, and Ronnie's family is basically a Florida cracker family. And if you watch the Pepsi tribute that was filmed in, I think, September of '77, or just prior to the plane crash, Pepsi was filming the band in preparations for, you know, doing some commercials, and then the plane crash happened and they turned their films into a tribute to the band instead of commercials. But if you watch carefully in the beginning of that, you know, Gary and Ronnie are fishing, and they're right off of where Brickyard Road is, out there in the west side of Doctor's Inlet, or Doctor's Lake as they call it, and that's where it's being filmed. And it's kind of funny, you know, for me to watch it because I'm so familiar with the waters in that area. And, you know, I know that when you're watching them fish in the Pepsi tribute, they're not really fishing, okay? They're just going through the motions for the camera is what they're doing, because that location where they're fishing out in the middle of Doctor's Lake, they're doing, you know, bass fishing techniques in open water with sandy bottom with no cover anywhere around. So bottom line is there's basically virtually no fish where they were filming. And, you know, even though they were trying to fish, you notice they're not catching anything. They're not getting any bites. They're not getting any nibbles. No, they're just going through the motions. But if you watch Ronnie, he is actually doing Florida cracker fishing, and almost nobody catches it. But if you haven't ever heard of it, it's called jigger pole fishing. And it's something that, you know, old Florida crackers used to do. And when you jigger pole fish, you generally jigger pole fish right off the lily pads or right off the cover, you know, somewhere where the bass are actually hanging out and hiding out and, you know, waiting for something to eat to come along, you know. And so you tie a lure onto the end of a long pole, and you generally have about 6 to 12 inches of line between the tip of the rod and the lure. And you just sort of dip the lure into the water right at the edge of cover, and you just kind of wiggle it around and, you know, make it look like it's alive, and the fish jump all over it, you know. And that's called jigger pole fishing, and that's what Ronnie is doing. And, you know, you have to ask yourself, why is Ronnie showing jigger pole fishing, you know, in the Pepsi tribute like that? It's pretty interesting to me, you know, that he would do that, especially at that location. So clearly Ronnie was not really fishing. He was communicating something else with what he was doing. And anyways, I think that, you know, Ronnie is really showing his cracker roots and his connection to Florida and his connection to nature. And, you know, his music was just organically grown from those roots. And in order for fans to touch that part of Skynyrd and that part of Ronnie, like I said, there's no greater way to get close to Ronnie than to take that drive, is all I can tell you. You know, take the Lake Delancey drive. You roll in the same roads that Ronnie did, you know, and just look at Florida around you. And as you go deeper into the jungle, you know, as you get deeper into Florida, you're really getting deeper into Ronnie, as I see it, you know. So that's what I wanted to say. Take the drive.